So let me go back. Just a little bit about myself. I think you already mentioned. I've been working for quite some time for General Motors, and we have worked on a lot of apps related to the cars. Like there is apps for the rating car, how much to pull in their apps for to, what can be fitted in with it, like how to monitor the driver, and a lot of other exciting things. So one of those parts was also came to me was to designing authentication for one of the apps, and that got my interest into the author, like hey, what it is, how it is done. I've been always been overwhelmed with authentication. Like I know it logs me in, and I get sometimes frustrated when my password I have to reset and I forget my password because each site has like their own, like I log into the 10 different sites and can't remember all of the passwords. So I think same thing probably would have happened. And then recently, if everybody started noticing, around 2012 or something, they started having this website having these little pop-ups like, hey, you see the button somewhere, it says authentication, you know what, Google, log in through the Google. And once you click on that, and then you can see that, hey, I've logged in through this Facebook and I'm now into the site. That's it, all I have to do is probably one or two click into it, and that's how simple easy it is. But now it's also like they are pretty much everywhere, and now we are flooded with the pop-up bundles, but it's working for us. So starting with little history behind it, like how it all got started. OAuth 2, OAuth 2 was not there always. Initially it was only OAuth. OAuth was for like identity. One app, they create their own login sign up process, and hey, I give you access, you get access to my app, you use my app, log out and complete. But then everybody will start creating their own sign up, right? So nobody can access, like if I'm trying to access Twitter, then again I have to sign up for Twitter. If I'm signing for a Pinterest, then again I have to sign up for that. To solve this issue, Twitter, one of the initial Twitter developer come with up, it's like we need a common solutions that we can use just the one login and it can be used throughout the website. So they designed this new framework. They rewrote the OAuth from the scratch, and now it's a kind of a almost standard, like all around the apps. OAuth 2.0. So it's a same way before authentication, but now they have provided user identity within the OAuth. Like anytime user logs in, they provide like an API in a way. It's like this API will get you all the information about user, and it will also give this API in form of a token. So it will be like in with first name, email, or any other information that you want to put it into there. So that will be the part of the this token, and now this identity will give access to any other app. Like no matter which app you want to log in, you implement this framework and use this identity framework, and it will work for you. It's been used by Google, Microsoft, any other big corporation that you know of. They have implemented and backed the support for OAuth 2.0. So what is Microsoft Azure B2C? So B2C is a solution provided by Microsoft. Everybody has their way to implement OAuth 2.0. Microsoft came up with their own service called Azure B2C, business to customer solution, for customers to make their like any third party app, like you want to connect with it. Like I want to launch my own grocery store, but I want users to allow log in through Facebook. So that will be the easiest way for them. Like, hey, I'm going to log in through Facebook and sign. I don't have to sign up for another app. So it's a custom identity solution, and you can have user created. If you have Azure Active Directory, you can create users and just use the login there, and you can use any other social identity. And it's a cloud-based service, so you can add as many so resources support you want. You want to scale out for 1 million users, 2 million users, or however many. And it's also makes it secure, like against any other threats. People always trying to finding new ways to hack into the logins and trying to get access for, so those kind of things it's very secure against. And when you, if somebody is new to the identity, it has, you can go out of box solutions. You don't have to like write any new thing, just use what they have provided built-in solution. But if you are implementing, let's say, a very complex thing, then you want to do multiple things during between sign up and sign in and log out, Then you can customize. They provide solutions for customizing as well. Cool. So what Azure B2C does, so Azure B2C, it's kind of a central between all of these IDs, like any of the social identities, and there are also the business and government, like organization federated. So those things, and there is also a client side APIs, web apps, mobile apps. So everything is like centered around Azure B2C and Azure Active Directory. So people are already have their LDAP and AD, and now if they can subscribe to the B2C service, then you can manage both sides. So how do we get started on it? Like basically, it provides a portal. Like if you have a sign up for the free trial, even they provide. So there will screen look like this, like Azure portal. And once you have your own directory, and you can click on this small thingy there. It might not be visible, but basically you are logged in. Whenever you are logged in and have a subscription, you will have a directory, and it can be per org, or you can have multiple teams, multiple directories. It can be designed as we wanted for the users. And once we are into the portal, we have your directory, then you need to create a B2C app. So very simple steps. There, I'll go through this. Now, they provide step by step, provide a name, provide your identity, redirect URL pretty much. Like if your is like mygroceries.com, then you will say, hey, my redirect URL is mygrocery.com, and then it will take you back there once the user has logged in. And once these followed steps are complete, and we'll talk about as we go on later on, I'll explain all about this, like what else. Follow the client secret is where it can be used, what's implicit grant, but basically you will follow this guide here. And once the app is created, and then you will see something like this screen. So here is the app management you can do through it. But two things to keep in important is to your tenant ID and object ID. So these two IDs will later on drive the rest of the processes. And another important thing to notice here, they provide these screen endpoints. So endpoints are basically URLs like API request. Let's say I want to request a token, so it will be one of the endpoints. They will point it out, hey, this is the API endpoint to request the token. So more about it, how a Microsoft solution is different than others, right? So Microsoft has combined a lot of things. They have their from end-to-end solution they have provided, and they have followed the OAuth 2.0 standard. And to understand what it does behind the scenes, here are some of the keywords to understand. So first thing, if you remember, like when you logged in, clicked on a button, it says I'm going to, once you log in, it says I'm going to access your profile data, I'm going to access your phone number, your location, or whatnot. So those things are designed by this scope, like what it can be accessed and what cannot be accessed. So you can always give your app read scope or read and write scope and design that. So next is we call it the keyword consent. So consent is any action user does. Say like yes or some checkbox or anytime. So once that user does that action, they are giving access, like hey, access my data. They are authorizing. So at that point, user has already authenticated, but now it's just getting access to what is defined earlier in the scope. And that's kind of builds the connection between client and server. And next thing is consents also, like if you're noticed in your apps, like every now and then you review the content, like hey, do you still want to continue giving this app access? So that's what brings it, like this consent is tied to your app access. If you revoke that consent, it will immediately remove that app's access from your for that user. So people always need to review, like we often forget, I forget myself, but I tend to do that. Like, okay, let's go back, like check my all the apps, who am I giving access to. In mobile phones is also available, and it's also it's a responsibility of the client to provide that, where customer can go and review, like hey, I want to continue give you access or not. So next keyword is actors. So actors basically is this new names that are like not just the name, but it kind of does the action. So based on that, they given names. So resource owner, they call it the user. So resource owner is basically I am owning everything information regarding me. So I am user. So they call it resource owner. Resource owner probably has access to the mobile browser or app or something through it get access. The next is a resource server. So resource server is probably your backend app or your web app, or it can be any other app, your mobile app, native client app. So those things are like the resource server. And client is basically your browser client, which is giving access. And authorization server in this case probably will be Azure AD identity. Like those authorization is by Azure Active Directory. So anytime, like in normal flow, for example, user will click on the login. It will send a request like, hey, to the server through the browser client, like, give me access to, give me a token, and that token will be sent to the backend app. And once your backend app or server app verifies it, it will send back like, hey, this user is verified, give him access to the home page. So tokens, we'll go a little bit more details about the tokens. So what are the tokens? Tokens are different type of tokens, but they are throughout like so very similar. No matter which you provider you use, whether you use the Microsoft B2C or whether you use Okta or to Salesforce, any other, these tokens keywords mostly stay common. The first one is a ID token. So ID token is basically it has all the information about the user. So whether user, and you can change that based on like, okay, I want to see first name, last name, or whatever you have selected. So this will be part of your identity token, and it is verified by the issuer Azure Active Directory in this case. And the next is access token. Access tokens are very for the short time, and you cannot revoke them once they are issued. There is no way to say, I'm just gonna take this token and make it remove from the browser. It stays in the browser, and it expires after a certain time. So most default time for B2C is 60 minutes, but the best recommended solution would be set it to around like 5 to 10 minutes and keep renewing it. So that way it doesn't stay in browser for the longer time and it makes your app more secure. So refresh tokens are primitive names just kind of you can send it back to get new access tokens. So once you can retrieve the access token and refresh token, you send it back, it stays in for longer time. By default, it's a first stays in browser for like 24 hours. So you can make another request if one of those API endpoints that I mentioned earlier. So there will be have a new refresh token endpoint. So when you provide a refresh token to that endpoint, it will provide you a new access token. And next is what the JWT. So JWT is a token format, like normally token JSON format is just any data, but this JWT is a very specific format for the token because it is digitally signed and encoded. Nobody can read it without decoding it, and it can be only decoded by whoever issued the token or digitally signed it. And Azure B2C have two endpoints where either of them can give you a token. It's a straight forward a token endpoint, you get your token. And there is also authorized endpoint they provide to get the token. So here you can see I put it like a sample token, and it divides kind of in three parts. And so even if let's say somebody got access to your browser, right, you lost your phone and they logged open your browser window somehow, and they say like, hey, this is the token, I can use it, but it won't be usable. Token can be only encrypted like by the identity. So this is makes impossible to decode it. To decode it, we need decoder. So there is another tool that's provided by Microsoft. It's called gwt.ms. It's just a browser-based tool. You can get this tool and you can put a token inside there and you can get access to that. And now your token will be decoded and it will show you what it is, what user information it contains. Like for here, it says name and what type of access scope it has, and how would during the debugging, you probably first time you see this, okay, how do I make use of it? So that's where it explains here about more, like what each of these contains. Like if you don't want to convert the dates right away, it converts the expiration time right away. Hey, this token is expiring at Monday, September 17th. So it's a very tiny little useful tool here for debugging purpose. So there is also extension they provide, decoder extension, like in browser. Like I have one right now here. If I'm working on testing continuously, then it just picks up the token from your browser and it decodes the token here the same way. So the next is flows, like how follow. There are process, right? When we see like certain screens, you will see certain people have sign up screen first, certain have a login screen first, and then from the login click, you will go to the sign up page, and everybody has their design different way. So like in Spring or Java, you probably follow pattern. There is a pattern also over here, different ways you can implement it, how users should be able to log in. So we call them flows here, like design the flow. And one of the first ones that we're going to talk about is implicit flow. So implicit flow is just the browser sending a request and I'm giving you a token right away. I don't ask who it is, what it is. Hey, you got access to my, you are asking me for token, I'll send you an access token. And it doesn't give come up with a refresh token, and there is no user saying yes or no or what is being accessed. So it's kind of become obvious, right? And then there is no client verification, there is no verification that it's coming from the trusted client or it client has received that. So it's very vulnerable to threats. That's why it's not most it's not recommended to use the implicit flow. The next one is authorization code flow. Authorization code flow, it's a newer version, it's much better. So what happens in authorization code is first user request, when user clicks on the login, it requests an auth code. Like within the URL, there will be an generated code, like encoded, encrypted with some keyword. Like, hey, this is the auth code, give me access. So once the endpoint receives that auth code, it says, hey, this auth code is good, I'm gonna give you a token. I'm gonna give you auth code, and that auth code gets another request along with a login request. So this time it knows that, hey, this is the auth code I know about. I'm gonna give you access the token. So that makes it more verified. That client has get the token. It's coming from a trusted client because you're making two requests. First for the auth code, and then you are sending that auth code back again for the token. So this is most recommended way to use to switch from implicit flow or anybody who implemented to authorization code flow. Next is a client credential flow. Client credential flow, like kind of say, you have the credential as a part of the process, and it's not for the mobile app. It's not for the customers or any web apps. It's more of for a microservices app, like where you have multiple microservices in the environment, and you want microservice A to access microservice B from that. Hey, what were the user? Let's run some jobs with the user identity or something. Then those kind of things you need this kind of a flow. So if you had remember, like while during this registration process, we have created a client secret. So this client secret becomes useful for this flow. Like you will provide this publicly private key combination, this client secret in your app, and based on that app you can request the token, you can request the authorization. But so this is the client secret flow, our client credential flow. Next is a resource owner password flow. So basically is flow is very simple. Like you create a follow, you create this flow with the username and password. So there is always a username and password already provided into the flow itself. So we can understand like why it makes it more risky. The very basic thing that you are trying to protect, and you are actually putting one that into right into the flow, like username and password. So once anybody can get access to it, they can get tokens, and it's you have to secure password, and that's why it became a legacy flow. They no longer support it, but it was at the time used for the desktop apps where they cannot get access let's say there was a certain machine that cannot get access to the internet to make the request to the token endpoints. So that's why this stops supporting the resource owner password flow. The next is the assertion flow. So this is regarding to the SAML users who are like who have LDAP setup, single sign-on setup, and they want to integrate with that. And this one you don't have to like user logs in one time. It's a single sign-on, and user keep refreshing the new token and then accessing like verifying, hey, this is digitally certified identity. So that's a assertion flow. So device flow, very simple, like it mentions, you just request you log in, and it's one of those where Amazon has implemented one time login. Hey, you want login, request the code. Once you receive the code on your mobile phone, then you enter the code onto the website, and that's it, you get the access. So that's a very simple device flow. So like I mentioned, the out of box solutions earlier. So out of box solution, it's called uh, Azure B2C user flow. User flow is what they provide already. Like you don't have to do anything. It's more of like any admin management screens. Like okay, this is the screen. This is the screen for sign up. You want to define this is the screen for sign in process. And you select, and it's a provide a checklist of attributes. Hey, I want to check this from this, and it also has upload files, like you want to change from the you want to have your company logo, or you want to have your company login page. So those kind of things can be done through the user flow. And they also have a session management, basically how long your session should last, or how the session can be revoked, those kind of things. So just going to go over a few of the steps for the user flow. So basically just you have to just click new user flow, select the type of user flow you want. So here you can see like it's already there, you don't have to define anything. Like I want a password reset certain way, go click password reset. I want sign up, go click sign up. And then just select what you want, like I want city, country, email address. So those are the attributes when user sees that prompt, like okay, these are the back thing in the token. Like right now this token has only name, but based on this checkbox, like it will have a postal code, it will have a country, and everything else. So very user friendly and manageable. There is no issues with that user flow. You can test here easily. So specifically thing to clear here, like you can have a redirect URL, your app URL. When we design the app, we can enter like groceries.com. So that URL will show up over here. So anytime you run this login, you can say it will land you back onto your homepage. So that's how you test, and it's a very simple way to design the flows. We like if you don't have any other extra things that you want to do during between sign up, like many people have promotion codes, they have discounts based on like whoever sign ups with that promotion code. So those kind of things will be can be done here with the user flow. Like it's very strict on the custom actions or certain things you want to do. To support to provide support for that, they have something called custom policy. So custom policy is basically, and now you are dictating what everything happens from the step of the seeing the user clicks on the screen and say, do you want to show user sign up, or do you want to see the login? So now you will define like what user sees first. You design each and every step, like okay, what happens after the next user? Like do I verify the email or I don't verify the email? Like if it's from only it is from my domain like mygroceries.com, or if it's from somebody else, any random email address that user is signing up with. And then I want to use the discount code as well, like if user has the discount code they want to enter. And so those things can be done, and it can also connect with your app because it provides supports for the REST calls. So within this you can also design like, hey, I want to bring to see if this user wants it has sign up. Let's put this user in this certain group. This user will be like my drivers, one of the, like whoever sign up for Lyft app, like okay, this user goes ahead with the driver, or this user has signed up as a rider. So those kind of things can be designed during the custom policy, and it also provides the Open ID Connect protocol as usual. Like it supports the any other identity provider you want to use. You want to have your own federated uh, Active Directory. So and also for SAML single sign-on. So it supports the single sign-on. So I'm gonna go a little bit more into the custom policy because it's basically a XML file. And first time I saw the file, I definitely feel overwhelmed. Like, what is? I'm going backward in the technology or what? But no, but it's a different way they have designed to control the identity. And it took me some time to understand. So that's another reason I presented during the talk. So it makes easier for the next person. Like, what is this XML file? What it does? So basically, XML file, you can start with this pack. They provide a starter pack, or you can already have some files that are available in your portal. So these are the 5 basic files. What we saw earlier here, like all of these user flows. So now these user flows are available as these XML files. And the first question you probably downloaded, like, how do I scroll through this XML file because these are big files, some of them. Your base file, so they provide a VS Code extension, Azure B2C. So with the VS Code, it's recommended to use kind of, it will make your navigation and any mistake easier if you miss that camel case or if you miss that closing bracket. So it will be useful during that. So with the VS Code, it will you can open and edit it. And these are the basic sets of the follow each one of them. So each one, like it says, puts in your sign up, sign in, profile edit does the profile edit, and password reset does the password reset. So each one is defined and each block by block. Like there is XML block, this certain block does this, and then that block being called into the next one. So it's similar to, like, let's see your function. Like I'm calling this function, and that function calls my next one, function two, and that one calls the next variable one. So how would you define your variables, or you call it claim? The claims are just called here claim type, and these are, you can say, like it's string or it's a boolean or however you want it. So these are your claims basically, or I call them in kind of a variable, and these are the text that shows up on the screen when you see the user sees the sign up. So the next block it has, it's called claims transformation. So its name is big, some of the names are very overwhelming, but what it does is pretty much it formats, like it does very small things. Like I want to convert string to date or date to something else. I want to convert number to a string. So those kind of things is done through the claims transformation. The next is a content definition. So why user flow has, if you remember, user flow has a very simple menu here, like page layout. Just upload whatever HTML layout you want, and it will update it. Meanwhile, the custom policy has this one, like where you provide a template, and it has to be in some network. Like I would recommend some CDN library where you have already it hosted as HTML, so Azure B2C can access it. If you are already have access to the storage to the Azure, then that can be used as well. So we put in the URL, hey, this is my HTML in this block. So next ones are pretty much technical profile. This is where everything happens. The technical profile, it's what defines like what to do and what it does. But technical profile are itself are nothing. Like technical profile needs to be called into the next section. The technical profile needs to be called as a part of the user journey. And one of the technical profiles that can be very used, it's the one with the log on email address, like basically logs the user on, then read email address users. And the next one is making the REST calls. It can be also done using these technical profiles. So technical profile, just give it a name, what it want to, metadata, what kind of profile it's going to be, and keys. These are your app secret keys that you have created a layer. And next is another claim transformation, like you want to do certain things for your ID before you send it to back to the server. And so those kind of things, like technical profile can be very different, like go each one by each as you need based. You won't need all of them at the same time. You already used your base framework XML, and then under your extension you add any other new ones that you need. Like these are the basic profile it comes with, and if you need any other extra, then only you will add it. Otherwise you don't need to add any other new things. And the next is very user journey. So user journey, this blog is pretty much with what it drives the steps. Like it mentions orchestration steps, and these steps have a order. So now if I want to control my login process, I want them sign up to be first, so I'll put this technical profile, log on technical profile, and I'll say like, hey, this is my order one. When I'll call this profile within that, so if this is order 7, then this will be the 7th step after the user has performed the first 6 step. And another thing also you can do with here, they call it precondition. So basically you're saying like, let's say if user signups with any other domain than mygrocery.com, I want the user to go back like, hey, go sign up with mygroceries.com only. So those kind of things we can control through these preconditions. So, and I, not everybody has to go through this orchestration step. Like there is always a basic provided for, and you only if you need it, then you will add additional step and modify it. The profile edit and password reset, again, they are very basic, they are provided. I don't have to change them to every single one. I only change into if I need. So once you have everything designed and let's say your app is deployed into the production or your test environment, then how do you monitor or keep track of it? So within the custom policy, they also provide debugging solutions. Like at the top of your profile, you can say here like, hey, this is a debug mode. Like in within your extension, at the top here, you can say developer mode true, and that's it, and that will start logging into your audit log. So a lot of services provided, some of them are paid, like you have to pay additional than what you have already for the app, but it's with basic app, it comes with the audit logs. So here you can see it logs the what time it logged in, what was the user, what was his ID, and who did it, like by which app actor. Like if you remember earlier that I had mentioned the actors, so it's one of the IDs. And also activity, like whether it was successful in the issuing the ID token or it wasn't successful in issuing the ID token. So all kind of events are logged in through here, and you can filter through it by the timestamps. Another tool which comes up with is a Graph API. So Graph API, since you are already with Azure Active Directory and you have B2C implemented, Graph API is very easy. Like just they have also provide collection of Postman, a bunch of collection. You can just download it and connect with your local or testing environment. And it's very easier to automate. Like if you want to keep cleaning up your policies, you have multiple policies, or if there are certain users you want to create, or certain groups you want to create, so all those things can be done through the Graph API. And they have also something like, I don't know if all of it does, but there must be a reason. Like Azure B2C is popular within user, they got so many tools. So here I can select any of these requests, like, hey, what's a logged in user's profile, and it returns me like right away. So this is a sample data, but basically you can log in and you can put in the credential and you can run however many requests you want to test and everything. So it's very useful tool. The next one is also securing your backend APIs. So once you have your front end secure, now you want to secure your backend, because front end will have a token. Every user that logs in will have a access token or ID token in a form. So just I have explained here the auth code flow. Like user agent logs into the resource, and then it requests the auth code first, and then it goes back to login page, and then user sends another request with the auth code, and this time it gets the access token back. So now user has access to the authentication server, but now user want to access the backend API. So this API needs to verify that hey, this token is from the valid user, or this request is valid request. So the backend API will verify the token. It needs to validate, hey, this token is coming from the correct source. And the response, it will send it only if the token is verified, then send the response. Otherwise, block the user from accessing the token. It's one of the easiest way to implement the security for the backend. With the Spring security, I'm just showing here one of the solutions. There are like ton of other ways. There are ways to web application secure, but this is the easiest way to just start with one application. Like if you want have a single app, and I want to validate the token from that single B2C app. So simple annotation, enable resource, implement this Spring security dependencies, first step, and then enable annotation. So after that, provide your key set URL. So this is will be also part of your one of the endpoints that you earlier created app. That's where you see that one of the endpoints like on the app screen. So those endpoints will have one of the key set URL that you put it in over here. And based on this, it will validate the tokens again. It will validate this token signature. That signature you see here, the KID. So this KID will be verified against this key JWK key set URL, and that way it will confirm like, hey, this token is valid token. Send the response back, and that's all we need to do for that. And you can implement it kind of like more granular level. Like if I want to see like, hey, this user has that certain role, like this user has an admin role, then and then this access can be accessed. If user is not an admin, then he cannot access this endpoint. Only certain user, only riders or drivers, certain people can access the certain endpoints. So a lot of creativity or creation can be done over here with the Spring security. Yep, that's it pretty much, guys. Any other questions? Anything? So everyone there?
Yeah, I think just I was not, somebody asked in the chat if you can.
Uh, what is where to? I'm just going back up to the question. Keep it. Keep it. Access link to the Git. Windows system access. Okay. I see. Can I please get a link to the Git? Do you have the Windows system to access the Microsoft Windows phone, or I have a Mac and I want? Oh, you can access with the Mac even because it's all cloud based. It's not something that you have to only install with the Windows. All you need is a subscription to the Azure services, which is only the price point, like whether it comes in your price point or not, or based on what users you have. I'm not sure what I've meant by Git, but
I think you talked about the claims policy and you hovered over to the
oh
GitHub.
yeah, Git
Yeah,
link.
yeah.
Link. Yeah, all the links are in presentation, but I can also put it here as well. That's the thing about B2C. Like you can get a free 30 days trial. You can get you get started and to learn more about it. But I'll get you a link soon. They have also a lot of tools coming up. It's a very new technology, and that's why they keep updating the documentation, everything, and they contribute to their own GitHub repo as well. What else was there? Did you learn majority through the documentation? Yes, yes, I did. There were a lot of tutorials, but there were also very good blogs about I read it, and they show me kind of how to design. The whole process initially was kind of very frustrating. Like, why I'm dealing with XML in this age? Why this the certain case thing has to be done? But then I was like, fine, I'll get through it, and now I know it like end to end kind of at least the designing part of the XML. Um, I forgot the name. I think it starts with V Connect or something that uh, well connect. Like it has a lot of starting from Hello World to up until designing like a very advanced where you separate the names, you verified hey welcome to the user, and a lot of things like interactions between just the what user sign up and hits that homepage right between that. Yep, I'll send you that one as well. Yep. It's I would say it's a still learning curve, wasn't tough, but it was still like I had to spend some time with it. Azure has a lot of cool things coming up, but the thing with it, like the more Azure services you want, the more you have to pay for it. Like next time we wanted to do a little bit more, uh, thankfully, like our organization had paid for it, so they allowed us to have a debugging. Otherwise, debugging was becoming difficult. We had to use some tools like Fiddler or anything to see the request in between, like what it sends. Otherwise, it all looks like a one condition because it's B2C server that's trying to connect to your app. It's not a part of your intranet or something that you host, so you don't have access to the what it sends and what it looks like. Yep. Yes, yes, all of them are cloud, and that's the way they make the money. Make your app, put it in cloud. Hey, it's in cloud now, $5 per hour. It's following AWS model. I think that's where everything started with Amazon services. Yep. Both are equal. I think Google has also their things their way. Like, okay, we are Google, we are going to do it our own way now. We'll charge this much. Like you buy all our cloud services, Google Cloud Business, increase that one. Any questions? Anything?
Yeah,
You're
thanks,
welcome.
Archana. That was a very great presentation, and I like the way you actually hopped around with like the GitHub page and everything. It was very accessible. Felt like we can also go ahead and do it on our own. Thank you for that, and uh, I think it will be great to connect with you as other folks in the chat are connected with you on LinkedIn. And for other people, we will go on a break, and then there are other sessions which will be there and you can access to the stage. And thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. I enjoyed it as well. So,
Yeah.
bye. Bye, everyone.